Hello, welcome to the Thinking is Infinite podcast with Joe.
And John.
And we're back.
And this is our first dual episode, right? In quite some time. Joe has been doing some shorts this past week. I hope you've been enjoying them.
Shorter podcast episodes.
And Joe, why don't you tell the audience a little bit more about why you went to a shorts episodes during the week?
It was kind of an idea that I had quite a while ago. Never actually fulfilled it because I kind of it was something that I stopped paying, the podcast was something that I kind of stopped paying attention to for a while, but then I kind of wanted to revive it. So I decided that if I was going to actually revive this, I needed to actually do things daily that I wouldn't be able to fit in a longer episode like this. So it's something where I decided to kind of actually just do shorter versions of the episodes. I felt like that would be very helpful in a way of just engaging every day, and you have something new every day, and then a week you'll get a long form episode like this.
I think it's been a great idea, Joe. I really enjoyed listening to your short takes on short subjects, and it gives you a little bit of a taste of something. So continue to do it. I truly enjoy it, and I hope the audience enjoys it too. How's your summer been?
It's been pretty well. Obviously I've been learning how to drive and all of that, but I've also been looking at college applications. A lot of times I'm just listening to music or watching videos and stuff like that. Just other things as well, reading articles. That's kind of the usual things I do.
Yeah, for the new and uninitiated to the podcast, Joe is starting his senior year in high school, right? Mm-hmm. And Joe's been pretty open about it. We've talked about it in previous episodes that he's got special needs and he's learning how to drive. And talk to me about that challenge. How has it been over the past? When did you start? A few weeks ago, correct?
Yeah, it is. It's been a few weeks.
And how do you feel like you've been doing? Coordination wise.
It's gotten better overall. I would say that on my first try, obviously I didn't do too well, but the whole driving coordination gets kind of easier as you practice more. So as I've kind of started to practice more with the pedal and the steering and everything, it's kind of started to get better from where it was at even a few weeks ago. So it's getting better, and I think I'm doing pretty well now on the driving and everything, on some of on a lot of the things, stepping and stop signs, turning. We practiced lane changing in one of our classes, so yeah, that's...
What is the single thing that you feel like you have to, I really have to overcome this to become a good driver?
Probably,
you, Joe, not anyone, but you.
Okay, that's kind of hard, but probably anxiety-wise, I don't know, I think
the nerves.
A lot of, yeah, and not even just what you'd think it would be, but also driving in new places and following the directions on the map or whatever, making sure to know where to react and where to go and all that. That's something that also needs to kind of be worked on if you're going to be a good driver, obviously, and drive across the country, which you might.
So stay tuned in future podcasts to see how Joe's been doing with the driving, and once he passes and the class and the road test and things like that. That's, as a dad, Joe, I am nervous. I'm nervous about any kids driving. I think you could do it. I think it's a repetition thing, and the more you do it, and the more confident you are, and the less anxious you feel, and as long as you're planning on going places, at least in the beginning, very local, once you feel really super confident, it's great. And I think in our end of our IRL session, maybe we'll do a little driving on the IRL. What do you think?
I don't
Joe's
know.
not sure about that. Maybe in a future episode. How about
Yeah,
that?
probably.
All right. So what's been on your mind? I know you've had some on your podcast shorts. You did one on the chips.
Yeah, the CHIPS
microchips.
Act, yeah.
You did one on Mike Pence, which was interesting.
Yeah. It was a whole other thing in of itself. There was also like there is one thing that kind of just came up today that I kind of looked at, and it's that Twitter is changing its name to X under Elon Musk. So Elon Musk, obviously he controls like Twitter now, and he wants to completely change Twitter into like an app for everything.
Yeah,
So-
what I did remember him saying when he first took over Twitter is that Twitter was losing a golden opportunity of getting some type of content creators making revenue. And I just heard, this has to be in the past week or two, that some of the people that have millions of followers just because they chose to opt into monetization were getting checks for like thousands and thousands of dollars.
I mean, yeah, obviously, it might be less than on YouTube because those people probably have more of a YouTube following, but it's definitely something where he's trying to, like, kind of compete with YouTube, but the best comparison that I can probably make is, kind of a combination of, like, he's trying to create a combination of WhatsApp, like, Twitter now, YouTube, and like PayPal. He's trying to mesh them all together, and actually it kind of already exists in China. China has WeChat, which is basically an everything app.
Really?
Where, yeah, you can like post things, message your friends, pay for things. WeChat is like what he's envisioning.
Now,
He's
is
envisioning
it also
WeChat.
like YouTube too, where you can post your
Yeah,
own videos?
pretty much, yeah. It's an everything app, like what Elon
Interesting.
Musk is envisioning. So I think that's kind of where he's getting his inspiration from. He wants to create WeChat in the United States.
Now, the interesting thing is this. Everyone seems to have their own favorite platform, right? Some people want...
A little bit.
Some people like, I think the older generations like... Facebooks, but the younger generation seems to gravitate towards TikTok, Snapchats, things
even
like that,
sometimes YouTube.
Instagram or YouTube. Now, do you think that Twitter's move will be able to bring new users, in your opinion, to the platform? Younger people.
I'm not sure. I think
Same. I
I
feel
think
the same
Twitter.
about it.
I think Twitter will have a very tough road ahead because a lot of the things that it like is trying to push they're already on other platforms. Like YouTube already has videos, memberships. It has like all that stuff. You can even like sell products on like YouTube and Instagram now, like on the stores and stuff.
So you think they're a little behind than their competitors as far
possibly, yeah.
social media goes?
Yeah, especially because like Instagram has like a store feature where you can
Yes.
like buy products
I've heard
from
about
like
that, yeah.
Sellers and stuff. I mean, as well as that, Twitter has gotten into the content creation game pretty late. Because, like, YouTube...
Very late.
Yeah, YouTube got into it in, like, 2008 and, like, began monetization in 2016.
They only
Twitter
started in 2016 for monetization?
Actually, that might have been demonetization.
Oh,
but
okay,
that
all
was
right.
that was demonetization. Sorry, but I think monetization started a little
Early,
bit
right?
earlier. But I don't know if it was that early on. I can't really like.
Not
I
100%.
can't really, yeah, not 100% sure, but definitely before 2016. But because that's when the first channel that really made a living on YouTube was Smosh.
Smosh? What was Smosh?
It was like an old channel back in like the 2010s, 2000s, late 2000s era.
What was it? What was
it?
On
Was
it?
basically
what was...
like it was basically like funny skits and stuff.
There you go. It's always comedy. Comedy seems to hit really well in the YouTubes, especially in the very beginning.
Yeah, especially then. So they were like the first to kind of make a career out of it, and I think they started earning money like in 2012, 2013. If I'm not completely wrong, but anyways, point is, Twitter is very far behind in the whole creator monetization sphere, so it might be difficult to get people from YouTube to kind of switch to Twitter completely. It could be possible, though, that Twitter could be used as a supplemental income for content creators. Mm-hmm. Like, maybe they can, like... Or X, that's what the platform's going to be called.
If you already have let's just say you already have YouTube's money stream coming in, you can also send your content to Twitter too, or if X. You have a good enough following.
That's actually that's what the Twitter rebranding was about. Okay. Because Elon just announced that it's going to be called X, and it's a pretty he's going to actually get rid of the bird logo, like the bird logo, the Twitter name, everything is going to disappear, and now it's just going to be called X, so with like a black and white logo.
If you have a login and you have an account, it's just going to look different.
Yeah, pretty much. And also, they're not going to be called tweets and things like that. It's like it's going to be X, and like, I don't know, I guess they're going to be called like posts, likes, and stuff.
That's going to be hard for them to rebrand like that, because it's even though I don't think it's the most popular platform out there, everyone knows the name. Yeah. It's like Q-Tip. It's like, it's everyone knows it. Everyone know, like, instead of people saying cotton swab, they say Q-Tip. Someone like tweeting and Twitter, it's been around for so long, and yes, it was, I think, a dying platform. And what I think he's trying to do right now, I think he's trying to revive it, and it's going to be very interesting. What do you think? Do you think they can succeed with this type of model from what you've researched?
It's hard to say. I mean, what I'm thinking is probably I would say no. I'm gravitating more toward no, because like I said, a lot of the competition's already there, and I don't know what Twitter will offer that can really kind of entice people to join their app as opposed to all the other apps they already have. And also, it's like you also lose a lot of the current fan base as well, because a lot of those people are posting the tweets. That's the whole idea, to post whatever your mind's at. It's supposed to be a posting platform. So if you gravitate more toward video and all these other things, it could also spread your focus thin. Yeah. So there's a lot of other problems that can be done with that. There is there is a possibility that it could become something big, but I just don't see that. I just don't think that will happen. But I think he is trying to revitalize it, because Twitter was losing money.
Oh yeah, they were losing money. When he bought an overinflated company, and from what I understand, and he paid a little too much for it, and they were losing money. So I remember him hearing that he cut staff, and I think Twitter has gotten better that he lifted bans on certain people, because I didn't really agree with the fact that you're banning certain people in what should be an open platform unless you're harming someone. Of course, bans should be out there if you're harming someone, if you're threatening someone, if you're putting content out there that's absolutely disgusting in whatever form it is. Yeah, you should be subject to a ban. But I think the Twitter that he purchased was banning people for talking about vaccines, or whether they worked or not. So what I'm saying is, I think it's better now, but I kind of agree with you. I'm not sure how they're going to succeed overall in the long term. Now, I haven't been on the platform, but didn't Meta try to do something like Twitter?
Threads, and it's already failing.
I knew it. I'm glad you're talking about it, because I heard
it's already failing.
Right.
It's actually they reached their peak a couple days ago, and already they've lost a significant percentage of their active user base, because they didn't really do anything new. They just kind of
So what is it? Is it
it's
Twitter?
Basically, they tried to copy Twitter, but they removed a lot of the things that, like, made Twitter better.
Okay.
So from what I understand, like, the Threads page would basically kind of look like Twitter, but you couldn't, like, do certain things, and, like, it was just a worse experience.
I heard
and,
that.
And, like, people just, like, stopped using it, and then, like, it just kind of went down, like, yeah.
So Threads appears to be failing. I heard it had a very good opening.
Yeah, it did.
So I guess I never saw it. See, I'm not really on Instagram. I have a dormant account on there, so I don't really use it. I don't even have the icon on my phone, so I don't really use it. But how did people access it? Because I do have a Facebook account, but I never saw hey, go over to this.
Well,
Threads.
I think what happened was, if you downloaded, like, a certain app, I think it might have been, I don't know if it was Instagram or if it was just, like, a separate app, but if you downloaded the app, you would link it with your Facebook.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's like your Facebook account.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, exactly.
So
for
everyone's. This is an audio podcast, obviously, but I just typed in the App Store, and there it is. There's Threads.
Threads.
It says Threads and Instagram something. I'm not going to do it. I don't want to put it on my phone, but that's interesting. So they tried to make a Twitter type account in conjunction with Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
it's failing miserably. All right.
Yeah,
interesting.
It went down. But then another thing I wanted to mention was, remember how we mentioned that WeChat was kind of like a China thing?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's kind of a little bit of what I wanted to get into, because China really, like, hyped up the idea of, like, the Belt and Road Initiative, which was basically their idea that, like, they would try to exert economic influence on other countries, like, and build developed nations' infrastructure.
Interesting.
But the problem is, a lot of that infrastructure is crumbling. Like, nuclear power plants have cracks in them because they're built by Chinese construction companies.
Oh, Lord.
No, not in China, on other countries, but it's built by Chinese companies.
Yeah.
So they're building, like, they're trying to build infrastructure in other countries, but all of the major infrastructure projects that they have in other countries are all falling apart after, like, 2 years.
It's kind of like the cheap toys at the dollar store, right? They're made in China and they break after a second. So I guess they do. I guess they're the same type of quality controls being done there.
I mean, yeah, because there's not, like, a ton of regulation.
Well, that's
there.
the thing. If you're going to build something, especially like power plants, regardless whether it's nuclear or any power plant, there's potential to have something dangerous happen, and if you don't quality control it, oh my goodness. Like, I didn't hear this, Joe. You're revealing something to me, and I'm going, oh Lord, what are they gonna do now?
I think they built stuff all over the world. They built stuff in, like, East Africa. They built stuff, like, in Brazil or something was part of it for a while. Argentina was part of it, and then, like, when they joined it, they, like, received all these promises, like, we're gonna really revive your infrastructure, we're gonna build such great infrastructure in these countries, because keep in mind, a lot of these countries don't have good infrastructure, and then it turns out that it just crumbles after, like, 3 years.
Because they're doing it on, you think they're doing it on the cheap?
Probably, and not only on, like, again, probably on the cheap, but also because they do it too fast. They just build it in, like, 6 months. They don't consider the ground. They don't really consider, like, the foundation and everything, how they'll actually properly build stuff.
It's interesting. Joe, there's different philosophies out there. There's a philosophy that, too much regulation hurts business, profits, and then hurts the economy. But if you don't regulate, you could put the general public in danger. So it's a balance. Like, you do have to have certain regulations out there, or companies will cut corners, will make things dangerous for people because they want to profit.
Yeah, obviously.
But at the same time, if you over-regulate it, then you hurt the overall economy. So it's an interesting thing that we have, at least in our United States political system, is that you have a constant struggle of deregulation and regulation.
I mean, that's true. That's true. A lot of, like, the, because there are, like, some examples of, like, things that are very over-regulated, and, like, obviously regulation can go too far. But I think, there's like also like the radical factions on each side that are like either no regulation at all or we should be regulating everything.
See,
and
that's
like,
the thing.
Both of them are.
That's
are
where you got
bad
to
in
find
their own
common
ways.
ground. That's why you got to find common ground and say, okay, what is going to keep people safe but not overdo it? You know, there's everything in the world has a risk factor.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have a zero risk for a car.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't have because if someone's driving 150 miles an hour and hits a brick wall, there's no safety regulation. It's going to save you in that instance. However, do I think cars should be made to a certain standard? Yes, absolutely. Same thing with a gas-powered car, right? Mm-hmm. It's almost impossible to make it, let's just say, 60 miles per gallon. Mm-hmm. But should you have some standard? Yes, I think some standard should be there. But if let's just say you make it, you say it's got to be 60 miles to the gallon, right? What are the car companies going to do? Make lighter cars, right? Those lighter cars could make them unsafe.
Yeah.
So there's a balance you have to play here. So I think it's very important as a country or as moving forward is find the right regulations. Don't just regulate for the sake of regulating.
Yeah, find ones that like not only should they like actually like not hurt business, but they should actually suit their purpose. If a regulation doesn't do what it's supposed to do, then it's not a good regulation.
Don't keep the regulation going just because. But people sometimes have too much pride. Or political parties have so much pride, and they're like, "No, we did this." They never want to admit when they're wrong, and I think it's a big important lesson in life. Sometimes you just have to admit when you're wrong. You know, if you made a policy decision and it didn't work, admit you're wrong. And we have so many examples where you could see it. I'm not even going to get into whose side politically, but you know as well as I do, there's certain things that certain people do in this world, and you're like, well, that was wrong, but they never admit it because they're afraid of losing power.
But that's actually one of the big problems with China itself. You know, a lot of the political leaders, they don't admit when they're wrong.
Of course they don't.
And they can't really be checked. No one's really checking
because they're an authoritarian
regime.
Right. You're saying it better than I am.
And
Joe's got the big SAT score, by the way.
Yeah, and a lot of like the whole like idea of like a lot of these places is that like you can't criticize like the central leader. Like there are like in China, they're really pushing the ideas of like Xi Jinping thought, all while they're like glorifying him as like this magnificent leader, all while youth unemployment is at 21%.
Good Lord.
21%.
That's insane.
Comparison, the U.S. youth unemployment rate is at 7%, 7.5%.
That's the youth unemployment.
Unemployment rate. So, China's really like, it really is spiking now because they're now heavily in debt. They can't really like, a lot of them have been, it's undermined by corruption, and apparently, like, they've really introduced...
So they're kind of like the United States.
I mean, that's true, too. They are
because the United States is United States is in a crazy amount of debt. I think we're doing a lot of things that are wrong. So it's interesting. In the world, there's always this power struggle, and right now, you always think that China is the strong one, but
no,
it's cracks in their foundation, right?
It's really weird because a lot of it is like the United States, but it's also worse there, even worse because it's an authoritarian regime, and obviously there's like nothing to prevent just blatant like bribery. Mm-hmm. So obviously like there's also been a lot going on like with that side as well. Just the idea of like, hey, you know, and then there was like another policy, at least this is what I've heard, where they're starting to rip up people's crops from the ground because it's not what like the state designated in that area. So apparently what they seem to be doing is like if you are designated to grow maple trees, well, not maple trees, that's not the best example. Let's say you're designated to grow bananas in the area, but you can't really grow bananas, so you decide to grow oranges. They'll cut down the oranges and just you have to grow that specific crop, and they'll arrest you if you don't.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, Joe, and one of the things that I always believe in is freedoms, and they take away people's freedoms by doing that and telling people how they're supposed to grow, what they're supposed to grow, and that's a shame. It's really sad.
And it's not only that too. Like, you don't, like, first of all, like, a lot of the crops, they're being, like, cut down and everything. And, like, obviously a lot of crops are being cut down, but that also causes famines because the crops don't grow that well in that soil.
Yeah.
I mean, I highly doubt that the CCP is considering that in their policies. Oh, and I got a little story for you.
Sure.
It's actually going to be a very ironic story, so get ready for it. So there is a man. This man is from China. He was actually one of the allies of Mao Zedong. And, well, he was until he got purged because he didn't exactly fully agree with him. And this guy, basically, he begins getting purged from the party a lot. And in the 1970s, Mao dies, right? And when Mao dies, this guy creates a constitution that, in his words, will ensure another dictator will never rise again. And when he made the speech, his son was standing by his side.
No,
his son
no
was
way.
Xi Jinping.
Oh, that's hilarious. So he built something that says no dictator ever again, and he turns around and his kid ends up being the next dictator. That's hilarious.
Actually, he died in like 2010, actually 2 years before he took the reins.
So in the Constitution, Joe, is there one little line at the bottom in very small font, but except for my son, is going to be the dictator?
He tried to like create like a checks like system in place, so like he would have
like the United States.
Yeah, he would. Yeah,
we're supposed to have checks and balances.
Yeah, but the difference is they would have like multiple factions in the Congress. So they have like a faction of the CCP here and the faction of the CCP there, and the whole idea was that these factions would be powerful enough to keep each other in check and
Isn't
to check
that
each
hilarious?
other's power.
I never knew that. That is freaking fantastic.
Yeah, his name was Shi Hao Quan.
Oh my God, Joe, you got to put that in the show notes and put that in there. A link to however you found that. Joe finds the most bizarre, crazy, cool stories out there. That's one of the reasons why I told him, Bill, do the shorts. You find all this great information. Talk about it to the public. I mean, a year ago you were talking about ChatGPT, and sure enough, that blew up all over the world. I'm like, you're ahead of things all the time, and you know these facts that most people don't know. Yeah. I find it brilliant. So on a lighter note, what else is new? Is there anything good going on? Like pop culture, what are you thinking? Have you seen any shows, anything out there?
Barbie movie had really blown up, and Oppenheimer, those were like the two big things that were kind of blowing up.
Oppenheimer feels more interesting to me than Barbie.
I mean, that's true, obviously.
Because I think it's a little more my
Oppenheimer,
speed.
Yeah, Oppenheimer is really more of like
Isn't that
Christopher
about World
Nolan.
War II?
Yeah, but it's about like the guy that created the bomb, like the nuclear bomb.
Oh, I want to see
and
that.
all of that. It's like it's about like his life and like a lot of his relationships and everything. Then the Barbie movie was kind of like the converse to that. They kind of released on the same weekend. So like,
what do you think's gonna do better?
Barbie seems to be doing better so far, but Oppenheimer is not too far behind.
See, I think Barbie's gonna open up bigger. Mm-hmm. Okay, but I think it's gonna fade quicker.
Possibly, yes.
And where Oppenheimer may be a slow burn, where certain people see and go, and then use that word of mouth and say, hey, look, this is a decent movie. And then you get a little momentum after
I mean,
that.
that's true, too. Barbie really marketed itself very well, too,
Very
though.
well. It's all over the place.
Yeah, it's they did really well on, like, marketing for the film. Barbie, like, they had, like, this whole soundtrack. They released like a couple songs before the movie was actually like 3 weeks before the movie.
Yeah, that's
with the
usually
trailer.
what they do.
So they released like these songs, and a lot of them were like very good songs and were very like popular. So people kind of immediately their interest was kind of sparked.
Which one, if you had a choice to see one, which one would you see?
Well, we already saw Barbie.
I kind of knew. Ryan, your brother told me, but so I was kind of just, I kind of knew the answer. Now, what did you think of the movie itself? Let's just say, give it a rating from 1 to 4 stars. 4 stars obviously being the best.
4. Probably like what do I like? Probably like 3, because it was kind of more in the middle.
Good things, but it wasn't great.
Yeah, it wasn't like amazing, but it was like a pretty good film, honestly. Like Ryan Gosling played Ken in the movie, and he was pretty funny.
All right, so it had some humor.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But it really did like push kind of like feminism, I guess. Like it really was more of like a feminist type movie.
Okay. And that could sometimes turn some people off when they get a little too. So that's one of the things I don't really like. I don't really like about movies is when they push a political agenda. Why I just want to turn on a movie and shut my brain off and have fun. And when they do that, sometimes it turns me off a little bit. But
and then that's true. A lot of times
it was pretty heavy. Just
yeah.
don't do it all movie. I don't need someone preaching to me. If I wanted to do that, I'd watch the news or I'd watch freaking politics and stuff. Well, don't you want to go to a movie and just have fun and laugh, or just enjoy an interesting story?
But what they did do that was like a bit like better to kind of, I guess, distract you from that, which actually kind of worked, was like they kind of focused more on like certain like comedy aspects, like comedic aspects of the film, so to like try and like at least kind of not make it too heavy, but but the message was that's the one thing that I really like didn't love, was that the message was a bit heavy on it. Like, yeah, you know, we like girl empowerment, we need to like destroy the patriarchy. They say patriarchy a lot in that second half of this movie.
Really?
Yeah, they say that a lot. Patriarchy is a very common word you'll hear.
What is the full the true definition? I hear it a lot. I hear people say it, but I don't even think most people know what it means when they say it.
I mean, it's like a system where like
men
are
okay.
like in charge, and like women are below men, and like a matriarchy is kind of the opposite, where like women are in charge.
You know what's funny? I've heard it so many times. I never looked it up and said, "What do you mean by patriarchy?" Okay, so it's more about female empowerment. Listen, I'm all for female empowerment, but I can't say that I am. Everyone just treat everyone nice. That's all I really care about. Just treat everyone fairly.
I mean, that's true, though, but they did kind of push that at the end of the movie.
Okay.
Because at the end, they actually were like, hey, Barbie World shouldn't go back to being a matriarchy. It should be equal.
Okay.
So, like, I guess that was actually where it did get, like, a bit better for me, like, the message. Because, like, the Kens in the Barbie like worlds were being like kind of treated as second class.
Oh, okay.
And that's what kind of caused them to kind of like rework things in their favor. So then they were like, why don't we treat everyone equally? And then they're like, yeah. And then she goes to the doctor. It ends on like a funny note, and the movie ends.
Well, I'm glad to hear that it had some comedic upside.
Yeah, it definitely did.
I just, it's like one of those things here. I'm at the age right now, Joe, that I really I'm not a fan of over preaching to me. I'm not a fan of gore. I'm not a fan of over like shock value movies.
I mean, yeah, like
so
obviously
a light movie like that, if it didn't go a little too strong on the social messaging, would have been an entertaining movie.
Exactly. I think also what's important to note is that a lot of like films, a lot of the films that like do that oftentimes like fail, but in this case it's sort of succeeding because it kind of advertised itself well.
Okay.
I think
they definitely marketed it well. I bet it has a very strong opening weekend.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to see over the next few weeks, and maybe we'll revisit it in one of our long form podcasts, and we can listen to this and say, I'm gonna say it has a big drop off, but it's still a successful movie. So if that makes sense to you.
Yeah,
it has a big for opening weekend because it is summer and people love to go to the movies, and I think it's going to have a big drop off as well. And I think overall it's going to be considered a minor success. What do you think?
Possibly. I think that just based on like the crowds I saw in the movie theater, my thought is that it definitely will have a drop off, obviously. But,
all movies do.
Yeah, all movies do.
Most.
But what I'm thinking more is that it won't be as fast. I'm thinking that it will be considered more of a success because a lot of people really got hyped up. But also, it could very well be possible that like it could be possible that it could die down. But I think what's important to note is that, like, the reviews for this movie are, like, better than a lot of the other, like, movies like that. But, speaking of, like, really weird, like, preachy stuff, they had, like, the trailer for, like, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. They made, like, a live-action remake, and they didn't want actual short people in the roles because that was deemed offensive. So they made, like, all these tall people and, like, just random tall people as the Seven Dwarfs, but they also couldn't have a white actor playing Snow White. So it was, like, this, like, black guy or something, or is he, like, brown? I don't know.
Oh boy.
They couldn't have, like, a...
I don't know how you can make seven dwarfs 6 feet tall. Now, the color of the people, fine.
Yeah.
If you want to make
that's
Snow White, someone from a different race, fine. I don't really care about that. But 7 dwarfs? What are you going to call them? 7 what?
Seven basketball players.
I mean, all right, I guess.
Because I guess, like, one of the people that, like, worked on it said that, like, getting actual, like, people that were too short would be offensive or something, which I kind of get.
Why don't you just keep it a cartoon?
I mean, I guess.
Instead of trying to make it a live...
That's true, though, but Disney wants to capitalize off of these things.
Well, they're probably off the success of Little Mermaid. I think had a pretty good showing, right?
Yeah, Little Mermaid was, in and of itself, like, again, they also make them worse, because they know they don't have to try that hard anymore, because people will go just for, like, the sake of the property alone. But I think that's starting to change, at least in the movie theaters themselves. Because Indiana Jones, they made, like, a sequel to Indiana Jones, and it doesn't seem to be performing too greatly.
I heard that.
And also other movies that are, like, sequels and remakes have also not been doing as great. So I think it is sort of a trend where people are starting to realize that, like, you know, we shouldn't really be doing these, like, remakes and stuff, and that these remakes are kind of, like, I guess, kind of see not, like, as, like, it's not a good investment of your time.
Yeah.
Like, people don't want to go to the theater to see it.
Well, everyone out there, I
it.
hope you enjoyed our first long form podcast in a little while, right, Joe? And we look forward to I'm looking forward to hearing more shorts this week, and then resuming our podcast on a long form next week.
Yep.
All right. Listen.
Okay.
Thank you very much for ever listening.
Thank you,
Joe. You want to do the outro?
Yep. Thank you very much for listening to this podcast. If you like our podcast, please give us a follow. We really appreciate that. We also love reading all your comments and reviews. I always go back and read those every day. So if you are ready to kind of leave those under, like, Apple Podcasts, let you leave those. That's pretty much about it. Hope you enjoy your days, and see you next week with this long form one, or tomorrow with the short form ones.
Take care.